Hare Krishna, welcome to the question and answer session on the Srimad Bhagavatam. The first question by Sri Anandji. Hare Krishna Guruji, it was mentioned in one of the sessions that we get what is in our bhagya, in our destiny. So one should focus one's efforts on liberation. Here I am confused as jivas, we need to fulfill karmas, hence need to put in dedicated efforts with good intentions. Please explain bhagya, gain, loss versus putting efforts to gain, fulfill one's desires. So this is actually a very wonderful instruction given by the great sage Narada in his instructions to Veda Vyasa in 1.5.18. Narada Muni says, Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yad bhramatamupariataha tallabhyate dukkhavadanyata sukham kalena sarvatra ghabhiraram hasa. The beautiful logic presented by Narada here is that just like without putting in our efforts, without aspiring for it, automatically by its own accord, dukkha comes to each and every one of us in this material world. So likewise, without putting any special efforts in order to get material, in order to fulfill our material desires and aspirations, Sukha also would come by its own accord. It is as simple as just like in the field of politics. Everyone may aspire to occupy the top seat, the post of the Prime Minister or the CM. Yet, there is only one person who is destined to become the PM or CM and occupy the top chair. So, in the ordinary course of things, material sukha and dukkha are more or less predestined, and we cannot change with our efforts. So just like if only purely efforts would lead to the desired results, then there are millions of people who aspire and put in a lot of efforts to gain a lot of wealth, to become millionaires and billionaires. So by that logic, everyone in this material world would have been a billionaire. So but how much wealth a person is destined to obtain, one will definitely obtain. So therefore, one should put in efforts but not completely get absorbed in these material aspirations, in the fulfillment of our material desires. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.13, it is very beautifully explained that there are 5 factors that lead to the result of the performance of any actions. Panchaitani mahabaho karanani nibodhami sankhye kritante proktani siddhaye sarva karmanam. For the successful completion and to obtain the result of any action, there are 5 factors, out of which our efforts is only one of the factors. There are other factors as well. Adhishthanam tatha karta karanam cha prithak vidham vividhascha prithak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. The place of action, tatha karta, the doer, the performer of the action, vividhascha prithak cheshta, the instruments of action, the various efforts for the execution of the action, and finally the supreme will of the Supreme Lord, the 5th factor called Daivam. So therefore we should take all this into consideration, and Narada Muni is inspiring us that now in the human form of life, put in special effort for something that cannot be obtained in any other species of life by wandering in the cycle of birth and death in 84 lakh of species of life. So what is unobtainable and is obtainable in the human form of life, one should try to attain that. And what is that? It is moksha, or liberation from material bondage. The next question by Shri Satish Bhattji. Hare Krishna, what was Shri Narada's previous birth name? So I had narrated the wonderful and amazing history of Narada in the previous Kalpa as explained in the 5th and 6th chapters of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But in both these chapters or in any other part of the Srimad Bhagavatam or in the Puranas, in the Puranic literature, the specific name of Narada in his previous birth in the previous Kalpa as the Dasi Putra, as the son of an ordinary maid servant, is not mentioned. Previous to his birth as the son of the maid servant, it is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, text number 69, that Narada in the previous to previous birth, he was a Gandharva by the name Upabarhana. So it is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Aham pura bhavam kaschid gandharva upabarhanaha namna tite mahakalpe gandharvanam susammataha. That in the previous kalpa I was a Gandharva by name Upabarhana. This is stated by Narada himself in his conversation with Yudhishthira Maharaj. So as the Dasi Putra, his name is not specifically mentioned. So the next question, who were his father and mother? So again, the father is not mentioned. Mother is just mentioned as Dasyastu Kasyaschana, as a Dasi, as a maid servant. The next question, can you please help me differentiate between Atma, Antaratma, Jivatma and Paramatma? Atma is defined in the Bhagavad Gita to be the soul as the source of consciousness. So there are two things in this material world. One is Jiva and Jada. So Jada and Chetana. So Chetana, consciousness, is derived from the Atma. So Atma is the spirit soul, the real identity of all the living beings in this world. So who am I? The real identity of each and every living being is that the real identity is Atma, and Antaratma in general refers to the call of the conscience that comes from the Atma or from the Paramatma. The next is Jivatma and Paramatma. So Jivatma is the individual, tiny, living entity, the living soul. So there are millions and billions and trillions and innumerable Jivatmas. And the Paramatma, he is one. He is the supreme Atma. He is the expansion of Bhagavan, the supreme absolute truth. He is actually, Paramatma is the reflection of Bhagavan, of the supreme absolute truth of the supreme Lord. So just like the sun is up in the sky and one can take as many pots of water and one would find a reflection of the sun in each and every pot. Likewise, Paramatma is the reflection of Bhagavan, of the Supreme Lord, in the heart of each and every living entity. So Jivatma is localized, is present in one body, Whereas Paramatma, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Kshetrajnam chapi ma vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. The Paramatma is present in all the living beings, whereas the individual soul's consciousness is limited to one particular body. The next question is the Atma in animals and humans of different quality or amsha? The quality of Atma in humans, in animals, in all the living beings, in all the various species of life is the same. This is explained and mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and in all the Vedic scriptures many times. Just like in Bhagavad Gita 2.30, it is mentioned that Dehi Nityam Avadhyoyam Dehe Sarvasya Bharata. In Sarvasya Deha, in all the various species of life, the same quality of the spirit soul is there. In Bhagavad Gita 5.18 also it is stated, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadakshinaha. A Pandita, a wise, learned, realized person, sees the same quality of the spirit soul in a Brahmana, in a dog, in an elephant, in a Chandala, in all the living beings. It is also explained in the Padma Purana how the evolution of the spirit soul happens through 84 lakh species of life. The same spirit soul, Ashitim Chaturamshchaiva Lakshamstan Jiva Jatishu Brahmadbhihi Purushay Prapyam Manushyam Janma Pariyayat. The same spirit soul undergoes a repeated cycle of birth and death. This is called the transmigration of the soul in Punarjanma Chakra, in the cycle of birth and death, and finally comes to the human form of life. Finally, the soul attains the human body, Manushyam Janma Pariyayat. So there is no difference in the quality of the Atma in all the various species of life. The next question is, what is Vibhu Amsha and Anu Amsha? So, Vibhu Amsha is the infinite expansion of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and Anu Amsha is the infinitesimal, the opposite of infinite. So, infinite expansion, and Anu Amsha is the tiny atomic or infinitesimal expansion of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So, who are Vibhu Amsha? All the Swa Amsha, Vishnu Amshas of the Supreme Lord. Rama Dimukti Shukalani Amena Tishtan, Rama Nagsimha Varaha Pradyumna Aniruddha Vasudeva Sankarshana. All the Narayana expansions, all the three Purusha Avataras, all the Leela Avataras, all the expansions of the Supreme Absolute Truth in the spiritual world, which are infinite in nature, they are known as Vibhu Amsha, and the Anu Amsha are all the Jivatmas, the tiny infinitesimal living beings, which are explained in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad to be Esho Anuratma. We are the Anu Atmas, and how Anu, what is the magnitude of the Anu Atma is also mentioned as Balagra Shatabhagasya Shatadha Kalpitasya Cha Bhago Jivasya Vigneyaha Iti Chaha Parashvati. It is 1/10,000, the tip of the hair. That is the magnitude of Anu Amsha, and Vibhu Amsha infinite, and therefore no one can measure the magnitude of Vibhu Atma, and therefore another name of Vibhu Atma is Ananta or Aprameya. The next question by Shri Pradeep Doshi ji is, How did Vyasa Maharshi, two Suta Goswamis and so many Shrutidharas left out bhakti path? So actually there is never a mention that either Suta Goswami or Vyasa Maharshi, they are the proponents of bhakti yoga throughout and have never left the path of devotional service. So how can we at a much lesser capabilities understand it? So you should understand that neither Suta Goswami, the two Sutas, nor Vedavyasa ever left the path of bhakti or devotional service. The next question, please elaborate the mantra given in 1.5.37 and 1.5.38 and how does it compare with Dvadashakshara mantra we learned, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the mantra given by the great Bhakti Vedantas, the great sages, as recorded in 1.5.37 to Narada in his previous birth, it is the Chaturvyuha mantra called Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya Namah Sankarshanaya Cha. So this mantra or the Dvadashakshara mantra, which is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, or even the Ashtakshara mantra Om Namo Narayanaya, are all absolute mantras for the worship, for meditation on the Supreme Absolute Truth, on the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. There is no material distinction or differentiation between all these mantras. It is stated in the scriptures, Abhinnatvat nama naminoho namno hi yavati shakti, that the same potency as in the infinite Supreme Lord is also invested in all the holy names of the Supreme Lord. Nam namakari bahudha nija sarva shakti. Every holy name of the Supreme Lord has the complete and infinite potency of the Supreme Lord. The next question, my question is, how many lives are available to humans for liberation? I heard about 400 or so. So this is definitely a wrong understanding that the human being has got some limited number of births in order to attain liberation or moksha. So liberation, the attainment of liberation is not a forcible imposition on the Jivatma that one has to attain within this much of lifetimes, and if he is unable to do so, then he heads for eternal damnation. There is no such mention anywhere in the scriptures. The living entity, by the proper use of one's own free will, has to come to the path of spirituality, understand the path of liberation, do sadhana, do the spiritual practices, and then attain liberation. So this is the only path. It may take 1 lifetime, it may take 100 lifetimes, it may take a billion lifetimes, it may take 1 trillion lifetimes. It is dependent on the seriousness and sincerity and the proper use of the free will of that particular individual living entity. There is no such limitation. The next question, how did Narada Muni take rebirth or avatara from previous kalpa to this kalpa? So this is I had explained it in a few sessions earlier. It is very beautifully explained in 1.6.27 and 28 of the Srimad Bhagavatam that Narada gave up his previous body and took the next body, prayujyamane mayitam shuddham Bhagavatim Tanum Arabdha Karma Nirvano Nyapatat Pancha Bhautikaha. As soon as his material body composed of the 5 elements, he gave it up immediately. Tadit Saudamani Yatha. Just like thunder and lightning are accompanied, lightning and illumination happen at the same time. So instantaneously, Narada got the eternal Satchidananda Vigraha of being an eternal associate of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. And Shaktyavesha Avatara means a specific potency of the Supreme Brahman, of the Supreme Lord, is invested in a Jivatma, and that is the category of avatara of Narada Muni, that he is a Jivatma empowered and invested with a certain specific potency of the Supreme Lord. And Narada's potency is the Shakti, the potency of Bhakti or devotional service. The next question, how did Narada Muni overcome the grief of losing his mother in his previous birth and take up meditation of Lord Krishna, as it is difficult for a 5-year-old? So I had very elaborately explained the sequence of how Narada, even when faced with the greatest adversity of losing his mother, he took it as the Anugraham manyamanaha tada tad ahamishasya martyanam sham adhipsataha anugraham manyamanaha pratishtham dishamuttaram. In 1.6.10 it is explained that Narada, by dint of his advanced spiritual transcendental knowledge, could take even this situation as the mercy of the Supreme Lord, and he set out on the path of a spiritual seeker, of a spiritual transcendentalist. So in this way, Narada, by Divya Jnana, by transcendental knowledge imparted to him by the great sages, by the Mahatmas, by the Bhakti Vedantas, he could overcome grief. So one can overcome grief and lamentation by the right knowledge. The next question, which of the 2 or 3 best combinations of the 11 words are most powerful of 64 meanings given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the Atma Rama Shloka? So the best meaning is given by the greatest Bhakti Vedantist of the modern age, His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. He has given the best explanation as all different varieties of Atma Ramas. So this is the Atma Rama Shloka 1.7.10. Atma Ramascha Munayo Nirgrantha Apyurukrame Kurvantya Hetu Kim Bhaktim Itham Bhuta Guno Harihi. And the best meaning of this is all different varieties of Atma Ramas, those who take pleasure in Atma or the self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, nirgrantha, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including the liberated souls. The next question is Gayatri Mantra the supreme one or another? So I had explained it earlier as well, that all the spiritual transcendental mantras, including the Gayatri Mantra, which is a meditation, it is also called Brahma Gayatri, especially on the Brahman aspect of the Absolute Truth. So any mantra that is directed to the Supreme Absolute Truth is equal in potency. But you have also asked which is the most supreme one. So yes, the most supreme one according to Desha, Kala and Patra patra according to the present conditions and circumstances. It is stated in the Kali Santarana Upanishad that Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, iti shodashakam namnam Kali kalmashanashanam na ataha parataropayah sarva vedeshu drishyate. The conclusion of all the Vedic scriptures is that the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the supreme for the present age of Kali Yuga. So the next question, Namaste Guruji, a wonderful story of Ashwatthama. I have one question. What was the motivation of Ashwatthama to kill Draupadi's children against the rules of Dharma when Duryodhana also disapproved it? Also, how did Draupadi forgive such heinous crimes so easily? So, this was also explained in the previous session that the motivation of Ashwatthama to kill the sleeping sons of Draupadi is mentioned in 1.7.13 and 14 that Bhartu Priyam Drauni Ritisma Pashyan, Ashwatthama or Drauni mistakenly thought, presumed that Bhaktuhu Priyam, his master Duryodhana, would be pleased by such an act. But when Ashwatthama actually took the severed heads of the Upapandavas to Duryodhana, Duryodhana strongly disapproved of this heinous act. So it was out of his own speculation that Ashwatthama thought that he would be able to please his master Duryodhana, and hence he committed this act. And how did Draupadi forgive such heinous crime? So this is the nature of the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord, of the pure Vaishnavas. They are Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha. The great devotees are compared to Kripa Sindhu, ocean of mercy, and therefore Draupadi could forgive Ashwatthama. The final question, why does Lord Krishna's story start post the end of War of Mahabharata and not from his childhood in Vrindavan, where he had performed many miracles? So actually the real content of the divine pastimes of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna would be narrated in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, whereas the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the events after the conclusion of the battle of Mahabharata. So basically Bhagavatam is most fundamentally a philosophical treatise than simply a narration of the different leelas and pastimes. It is a philosophical treatise, and it is presenting the various philosophical truths in a certain progressive manner, and therefore Vedavyasa has explained the various histories of Dwapara Yuga may not be in a chronological order, but in the most philosophical order of the ascension of the comprehension of the spiritual truths. So thank you very much. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please do join us for the continuation of the narration of the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.